Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 7 p.m., Monday, September 21st, 2020. I would like to call to order this special board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. Distance learning is a subject or title of this meeting. I would like to thank everyone who is on the call, everyone who is joining us tonight. Thank you very much for being with us. Disclaimer, as with all virtual meetings, hopefully the internet doesn't cause any problems tonight. Hopefully we all stay connected and we're able to get our points across. Before we get going tonight, I would like to say a word of caution to all of us that will participate tonight as far as the sensitivity of the subject being discussed tonight. It is the topic of the moment, not just the day, not just the week. Tonight, we'll all have an opportunity to express our sentiment. For those that are viewing or listening tonight, we gave a directive to the superintendent to conduct a community-wide survey as to gather information on feedback for the reopening or going back to school in some fashion here at the Othello School District. Since then, we, the board, have had a conversation with all the administrators of this district. At their request, we met 2 at a time as to not break any OPMA meeting rules or things of that nature. A discussion's been made. We have had some time to reflect on those meetings, those conversations. And tonight we're just going to have a discussion, have a conversation as to where we go with this survey. Do we proceed, not proceed, modify it, modify the surveyees at this point? I mean, what do we do? But I do want to caution us all to be very careful, very cognizant of each other's feelings, each other's thoughts. Like I said, this is a very touchy subject, and our opinions vary, which is okay. That is fine. So with that, tonight we will begin this meeting with opening comments from the superintendent. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks very much, Mike. I appreciate you sharing that we did have a conversation with board members. And I think that's how I wanted to just start, just by giving an overview or generalizing what the conversation was, or just certain themes. I think in the conversation between myself and the principals, it was certainly expressed a big issue around safety. So as I'm sharing tonight, I think that will be the bulk of my message, but certainly there were other themes that were brought up in the meeting. One of the themes that we relayed to the board members is our principals are the people that we've entrusted, or they've been entrusted to really run and lead the district and really lead the work. And of course, we know that all of our employees are extremely valuable, but we really wanted to make sure that we listen to their voice, because they are stakeholders as well. So having them have that opportunity to meet 2 at a time with the board members was extremely important. So with that in mind, and keeping in mind that they're stakeholders as well, they shared openly and honestly and transparently with our board and with me as well. One of the themes that came up is around just data, which is really what this evening is about, at least on my portion, is just presenting a number of pieces of data for our board to really think about and consider as we think about just the survey decision. And one of the things we talked about in that meeting is just ensuring that we have a lot of data before us so that we can all make informed decisions. So the next theme that we talked about was around safety. What I didn't share with the board, or what we didn't share at the board at that time, is a framework called AWSP, which stands for Association of Washington School Principals. That framework is a framework that's used throughout the district to evaluate all of our leaders. As I reflected on our conversations, I thought about criterion 2, which talks about safety. And what it shares is about our leaders. And this applies to every leader in OSD, in Othello, that they are, I am required to ensure that we're looking out for the physical, emotional, and intellectual safety of all of our students, but not just our students. In that framework, it also talks about staff, and that these conditions are critical and necessary in order for effective teaching and learning to take place. So one of the things I just wanted to share with the board for us to certainly consider and think about, there was conversations about social and emotional well-being of our students. And we understand that, and we agree 100% that is important. But also in this framework, we understand also physical safety is equally important. And as we share with the board, that message came out loud and clear. And as I present this evening, that's really the gist of the message as we think about our numbers, our positive COVID rates in our county and even in just Othello. They're extremely high. And I'll share some data with you to share, to show that. So again, physical safety was certainly a big portion, and there was a theme around us not causing or allowing a situation that puts our students or staff at risk. So again, considering the data, considering our high rates, that was a serious theme that was shared. And not just that we're not putting our students and staff at risk, but there was also a sentiment shared that we don't want to be complicit in endangering lives. And that is a reality. And I'm going to present some evidence and some documents to support that as well. Another theme that was shared was around timing and communication. And I'm going to put those two together, and then I'm going to start sharing the data with you. But when we talked about this with the board members, we really talked about the first part of the school year. It's a very tough time of the school year. We talked about the summer as well, and then having to pivot from what we thought we were going to be implementing a blended model to an online model, and then the work that went into that. And then now engaging in this conversation about a potential survey, which is really what this discussion is about. And what we shared was certainly the timing and the communication around this conversation. I know it caught a lot of us off guard, especially at the very beginning of the school year. And that was a sentiment that was shared with the board as well. So again, the board, public, we wanted to just share some themes with you that we share with the board, and just being very transparent and honest. Those were the themes that was shared. And again, keeping in mind, there was a big topic around safety. So here's what I want to share with you. I'm going to ask Talia to bring up some documents for you to see, and we can make this available for the public as well, and put this on the agenda. But this first document is the incident rate, and it refers to the incident rate in not only Adams County, but across all counties. So we'd just like you to pay attention to this, and I'll describe it for those who are not seeing it, or if they're just on here by phone. You could see we have 39 counties in the state of Washington. And the left side of this chart just describes the county, but then the right side of this chart describes the COVID rate, or Some people refer to it as the incident rate, which is described in, and I see a typo, it's per 100,000 over a 2-week period. So for instance, at the very top of the list, the county that has the highest positive COVID rate per 100,000 over a 2-week period, this is as of September the 17th, is Whitman County. We are number 2. Adams County has 684.9 positive COVID rates per 100,000 over a 2-week period. We just saw today, I think most of the board members, myself, got an email that said that we had another 22 cases, positive COVID cases today as well. I think mathematically speaking, if we were just to look at our community of Othello, it came out to be right around 1,000. And that makes sense because certainly Othello is bigger than some of the other areas in Adams County. So it makes sense that our actual rate is a little bit higher than the actual county rate. So as a county though, Adams County has 684.9 positive COVID cases per 100,000. Then you can see the next county, can we mute that please? The next county is Grant County, which is 379. So you can see a significant difference between Adams County and Grant County. And you can see it just goes down from there. The next one is Garfield County, then Franklin County, and then Walla Walla. And if you can scroll down, I just want the public to be able to see that. And then I want to kind of stop and just talk about after Yakima. So Yakima has 94.9 positive COVID cases per 100,000. And then it goes down to Douglas. So I want to share this with the board and with the public. It's important to remember metrics that we have talked about in the past where conversations can really start is when that number per 100,000 is below 75. So if we can all just remember that. Scroll down. And you can see those counties drops from 72, it goes down to in the 40s to the 30s. Keep scrolling to the next page. And then you see some counties are in the 20s. Some counties are in the teens. And then it goes down to Jefferson County only has 3 positive COVID cases per 100,000. San Juan, 0. And Wahkiakum has 0 as well. So just an overview just on this document for the board and the public. There's 39 counties in our state. There's 27 counties that are below 75 positive COVID cases per 100,000. These counties, rightly so, can start having those conversations about either in-person, blended, or hybrid model. And rightly so, even those that are in the 100s and the 200s and the 300s, I'm sure we have heard that these counties have had those conversations as well. But again, we don't know all the factors, why they're having those conversations. We don't have all the data in front of us about why they're having those conversations as well. But this is certainly important data for the board to consider. And certainly that number, 684.9 for Adams County, is certainly worth remembering. And then I want you to scroll down to the next document. So just the first portion, I want to talk about this document. This document was CDC, which is Center of Disease Control. This document was forwarded to all superintendents across the state, and it contains the CDC indicators and thresholds for risk of introduction and transmission of COVID-19 in schools. So simply put, what that really means is looking at that first line, it tells us, and it tells all districts and all superintendents what communities are more at risk whenever you have a lot of positive COVID cases and what that transmission will look like in the schools. So I'm just go from left to right for the public especially. It has low risk of transmission in schools. That's when communities have fewer than 5 positive cases per 100,000. And then lower risk of transmission in schools is between 5 and 20. So just want to share with the board and the public, this is one of the main reasons why the Department of Health and the state has issued those guidelines and that matrix or metrics saying this is really optimal where you can have those conversations of bringing kids back in person or blended. Moderate risk of transmission in schools is between 20 and 50 positive COVID cases. And then you can see the high risk of transmission in schools between 50 and 200 positive COVID cases. And then on the far right, you have the highest risk of transmission in schools is when you have greater than 200. So keep in mind, the chart only goes up to greater than 200. We have almost 700 positive COVID cases per 100,000. Putting this in context, the question has come up or may come up, what's the difference between putting kids in school now in Adams County versus when we have a reduced infection rate? So this chart really describes that. So if I could just give you a scenario, whenever you have a community that has a high transmission rate, as Adams County does, there's more of a risk of transmitting COVID to another person. One of the things I'll share with the board and the public as well is the infection rate, which is the rate that someone carrying COVID infects another person, is 1, which means there's a 1-to-1 correspondence, meaning that if one person has COVID, they can infect one person as well. So that's an infection rate. So let me paint this scenario for you. If you have a high COVID transmission rate in the community, as we do, and let's say, for instance, you have 4 kids that are asymptomatic going into the school, they can infect 4 other people. Whereas if you have a community that has a low infection rate and you have a student that goes into the school, then they're less likely to infect a lot of people. So let's say, for instance, it's 1 over here in the county, 4 over here. The one that has 4 cases, then they can infect 4 other people. So just thinking about that picture, it's understandable that the higher your COVID transmission rate is in the community, the more likelihood that you can infect more people. So that's the difference. So I've been asked that question about, well, these kids our kids are going to go back to school at some point. What's the difference? The difference is 75 in the community positive COVID cases versus almost 700. So this is an important piece of information for me to share with the board. And then the next slide. Keep going. Let's stop right here. I wanted to share also with the board and the public the guidance. Guidance from our state, and then guidance also from the Department of Health. And they are the same. When you look at the next slide, which we're going to show you, and this slide, they're not different. When you look at the guidance from the state, it says very clearly, when you have higher than 75 cases per 100,000 over a 2-week period, then the state and Department of Health strongly recommends distance learning. That has been very consistent with Department of Health. I have spoken to them recently. I've had seminars with the superintendents from Grant County and Adams County with our local Department of Health as well. And this guidance continues to be the same. And in fact, it's across the state the same. So above 75 cases per 100,000, the recommendation still remains online learning, distance learning. When you look at this also in the middle of that document, you have moderate, so 25 to 75 cases. So anything below 75 up through 25. There's a recommendation by the state and by our local Department of Health that says, here's when you can start having the conversations. You can consider expanding in-person learning to elementary school students. You can look at blended learning opportunities as well for middle and high school students. And that's those conversations when the community is between 25 and 75 positive cases per 100,000. And then low is less than 25 cases. Again, the recommendation is if your community is below 25, that you can have conversations around in-person learning for all elementary students. You can even have those conversations with middle and high school students. It could be hybrid or blended conversations as well. But I think that the key number that I want to share with the board is starting those conversations at below 75, so between 25 and 75 or less than 25. And if you scroll to the next slide, you'll see here, this is the Department of Health recommendation. It's exactly the same, almost verbatim to what the state has shared. And again, the recommendation has not wavered. It's been the same, and I did check today. These recommendations are still in place. Also wanted to share with the board and with the public as well that there were, and even in our meeting with the board of directors, certainly there was a lot of conversations that took place with the board, with the district around our planning processes and updating the board and sharing the recommendations from the state and from Department of Health. And this was memorialized in a resolution that was passed on July the 27th as well by the board. And one of the things just wanted to share with the board is certainly we've had the conversations around what the recommendations were from Department of Health and from the state. We did put that into the resolution, the board approved it, and we're moving forward with this online direction with the understanding from the board that as we move forward and as the numbers got better within the community, then we would transition to a blended or in-person model. So here's the conversation that I would like to have with the board. That's the data. That was the conversation that we also had with the board with the principals. What I would like to share with the board is we certainly have heard from many individuals, and I know there's been some informal polls as well, about wanting our kids, our students to come back to the classroom. I myself would even echo that sentiment, and it's not a secret. And I think if you did take a poll, you would hear that everyone wants to be back in the classroom. Everyone wants our kids back in the classroom, including myself. However, my conversation is it cannot be at the expense of the safety of our students and our staff. Our numbers are just too high to have this conversation right now. So that's what I'm asking the board to really reflect on. Another thing that I'm asking the board to reflect on is nothing would be worse than to make a decision where the board would have to redefine our metrics for school closure. And this is what I mean. If we do decide to move in this direction, then what that means is we're putting aside the Department of Health guidelines and their guidance, which includes those metrics. And that was brought up at the last meeting. So that means that there will be a process in which we would have to redefine those metrics. What I didn't share with you is a conversation that took place between myself and Clear Risk. So Clear Risk did very clearly state today that they strongly, and that was echoed 3 times as I'm sharing it with you, they strongly recommend that we follow the guidance of our local Department of Health. They made it very clear they would not drop our insurance, but in going against our local Department of Health's recommendation, they commented that it would put our district in jeopardy if we decided to go against their recommendation. That will be a conversation for executive session at another meeting for me to go into more detail with the board to explain that and what does in jeopardy really mean. But they were very adamant and sincere that we followed the guidance from our local Department of Health. One of the things I would share as well for the board to consider is the yo-yo effect. And Clear Risk and I talked about this this morning, having to pivot. So depending on what the new metrics would be, Clear Risk shared with me a case that they're working on right now with a district, which they did not name, that said they made a very similar decision in moving in a certain direction, whether it was blended or in person. And they have had some COVID cases, which caused them to immediately pivot back to an online model, which had to happen the next day, which is really what I meant to say when I said nothing would be worse if we had to go in this direction too soon, that we started having this conversation too soon. And because our high rates, we have a number of students who may be, or adults who may be asymptomatic, and they are infecting someone else, and we have to close right away and pivot back to an online model. It would just be detrimental to the system. So here's my recommendation for the board. Since this meeting is about the survey, my recommendation is that we postpone the survey. We postpone the conversation until our community COVID levels are at levels as outlined in the metric, as I shared by our state and by Department of Health. And that was in all of our presentations as well to the board, which is less than 75 per 100,000 over a 2-week period. I would share also for the board to consider sending out a survey at this point, at this time in the school year, this early in the school year, will only yield the results that we already know from our community and from our employees. What I would ask the board to think about is there is already the sense that this is hard work. We've asked our employees to do a lot. They're looking at various platforms. They're looking at engaging with our kids through Zoom. They're planning differently their lessons. It's new. People are a little bit uneasy. We put out a survey right now. You're almost going to get what we expect people are feeling right now, that we want our kids back in the classroom. I encourage the board to really have another conversation and think about, let's really look at our high rates. And yes, we all want our kids back into the classroom, but let's not risk putting our students and our staff in jeopardy. Let's not cause that situation. And let's wait till our COVID transmission rates in our community is below 75. What I will share as well is that certainly in that meeting with the principals and the board, there was a sentiment that we are ready to pivot to a blended model because those conversations had already been had. Principals have shared that they are ready to move in that direction. However, as I shared, as they shared, this is not the time to move to that model for the safety of our students, for the safety of our staff. So our ask is that the conversation does not occur, the survey does not occur until our community is at acceptable rates as described. That's what I wanted to share with you, Mike, and board and the public. Thanks very much.
All right. That was quite a bit of information for us. Some a little repetitive. We were aware of those numbers. What I want to do now is just open it up to the board. We've been presented with a lot of information. We've done some research ourselves. We have had staff members share research they've done. So we have a lot of information in front of us. I think we need to hear each other out tonight and figure out a plan going forward. Like I said, let us be cognizant of each other's feelings. Some situations that pertain to COVID-19 are very personal in nature. So I would just admonish us to be very careful. Anyone who wants to chime in, this is the time to begin that discussion.
I'll go first. I would like to move forward with the survey. I am an elected official, and I was elected because the majority ruled. And that is a concept that I personally believe in, that the majority rules. And so for me, sending out a survey gets the input from the people, the families in this community, the teachers in this community. And then I'm happy to go with what the majority wants. Dr. Hurst, you know that I respect you and everything that you said. It's not falling on deaf ears. I hear you. I also hear the constituents that elected me that have been calling me, both teachers and community members, saying this isn't working. My child's teacher is amazing. This is nothing against anything that the district has done. They're doing the very best that they possibly can with a terrible situation, but this just isn't working, whether it's internet connections or lack of parental supervision or you name it. It's just not working. And so I would like to give a voice to the teachers in our district who are seeing their students every day on Zoom, and get their perspective on what they would like to do. I would like to get the voice of the people in our community, the parents of our students. I would like to have their voice be heard. And then we'll take it from there. But that's just something that I really believe in, is listening to the majority voice. I know that when Royal City began in-person education about 3 weeks ago, their numbers were much higher than they are now. They persevered, they stuck it out, and now their numbers are looking better. I personally feel that any district that goes to any form of in-person learning should do it with the expectation that COVID is inevitable. It is here and it is never going to go away. It doesn't matter how low we get our numbers. One person in the world will always have it. And so I personally don't think that we can have the mentality that no one's ever going to get sick. People are going to get sick. Not everyone will even take the vaccine once it's approved and is out there. And so I feel like as the majority, we have to figure out how to survive and how to live and move on with our lives. And so for that reason, I would like to move forward with the survey. I have some ideas about the kind of questions I would like asked, and in a format that is easy to read and does not incite fear, and cuts straight to the point. But I'll let other people chime in first before I have recommendations about what I would like the survey to say.
I too feel the survey needs to proceed. The survey is not telling the district or anybody when we are opening. It is not saying how we are opening or what model it is. We need to collect the data from everybody, from our teachers to our students to the parents. And some of those questions could involve when they feel safe that it is to open up. I'm going to read a couple of policies that we have. The first ones I'm going to read is, this is from our governance policy, and this is GP1. The board supporting the welfare of the students, the work of the superintendent, administration staff, and the interest of our diverse community holds itself accountable to the citizens of the district by ensuring that all action it takes is consistent with law and board policies. The following beliefs reflect the board's fundamental values and characters for the district. And we go down to number G on that list. And it says all community members are equal partners in education and are treated as such. GP2 starts off, the board is the direct district's principal connection with the community and acts as the community's voice in governing the district. As such, it will govern with emphasis on end results for students, encourage diversity in viewpoints, focus on strategic leadership rather than administrative details, observe clear distinction between board and superintendent roles, make collective rather than individual decisions, and give collective rather than individual direction, exhibit further rather than past or present orientation, and govern productivity rather than reactivity. Number 1 on that one, the board will cultivate a sense of group responsibility. The board will work in partnership with the superintendent, administration staff, students, parents, and the community. The board, not the superintendent or administration staff, will be responsible for excellence in governing. The board will use the expertise of individual board members to enhance the ability of the board as a body, but not substitute individual judgments for the board's collective values. Then in GP3,
Ken, we've lost your voice. Ken?
focus of the organizational performance. Use appropriate avenues to ensure input from students, administration, staff, parents, community members as means to link the entire community. E.g., community surveys to gather input, invite participation in decision-making about levies, bonds, and etc. So we as a board, I think, through our policies, it's pretty clear we are the link between the public and we represent them. We also have a responsibility to our staff and our students for their safety. And I would completely agree that the numbers are really high right now. but it's never too late to start in that discussion and how to get these kids back into school, especially the most vulnerable. I believe we have even started on bringing in some of our SPED kids already, but there is a lot more kids out there that are a lot more vulnerable. I had the opportunity to, for a couple days, to witness some online teaching for 2 full days. I seen the great work that our teachers are doing. I have to compliment them. All the struggles that they go through and working with these kids to try to keep them on and try to teach them these lessons. It was remarkable, and it was really an eye-opener how hard and how many struggles that these teachers are going through to get this done.
Lost you again, Ken.
Going on in the background because they would have other siblings in one room where they could only get the internet. And you would hear 2 or 3 conversations going on at one time. And it's hard and it's difficult. I even seen a young lady that probably was, she was 3rd grade. And she actually had to leave the meeting for a while to go take care of her younger siblings because the parents were not home. But she made an effort to come back. She took care of them and she come back. And just like those kids are resilient too. A lot of them were getting knocked off the internet, but they would be right back. And that's impressive to see. They want to be there. They want to learn. But they don't get everything they need that way. In-person instruction actually works the very best. I've did some research lately. This is why I'm worried about the kids. In Adams County, let me pull up. Adams County has a poverty rate of 23%. The national average is 13%. That was pre-COVID. Out of that 23%, 24% are those under the age of 18. It is known that kids in the poverty rate have a higher struggle, especially with online learning. Homes, this, by the way, I got this information off data for counties. The households with internet in Adams County, I tried to decipher between Othello and Adams County, but it was pretty hard. But the population base is in the Panhandle. The majority of it is in the Panhandle or within our school district boundaries. The number of households with internet is 66%. The state average was 86%. And I have to compliment our IT department for working very hard on getting those buses out there, arranging for hotspots. My understanding is there was over 1,000 hotspots given out to different families. But internet's not a completely reliable in this area, unfortunately. And we witnessed that today, this morning, with internet services, and not on just one, but several services losing their capability for most of the morning. The median household income for Adams County is only $49,000. So that tells you how many that is in the poverty range in Adams County. The state average is 70,000. And the language, other than English spoken in the home, is 54.9%. The state average is only 19.4%. So we have a lot of English language learners out there that I know they're working hard to try to do it, but it's not the same as in-person instruction. an article that come out recently in the New York Times, and it was based off of a lot of data from a couple of surveys. I mean, not surveys, but research papers. Brown University and the University of Virginia and the McKinsey Company. And this article is based off of that. And it says that new research suggests that by September, most students will have fallen behind where they would have been
Ken, we can't hear you if you can hear us.
in access to computer, home internet connections, and direct instruction from teachers. And the crisis is far from over. The harm to students could grow if schools continue to teach fully or partly online in the fall, or if they reopen with significant budget cuts because of the economic downturn. High school dropout rates could increase. Researchers say while younger children could miss out on fundamental concepts in phonics and fractions that prepare them for a lifetime of learning and working. The dropout rates were mentioned in the McKinsey report. First, let me mention about the gap. They actually used 3 different scenarios to help gauge their findings on. And this scenario is similar to what we are doing. And it's, okay, this scenario does not in classroom instruction does not resume until January 2021. We estimate that students who remain enrolled could lose 3 to 4 months of learning if they receive average remote instruction, 7 to 11 months with lower quality remote instruction, and 12 to 14 months if they do not receive any instruction at all. This is the one that I've heard many times. Students who miss more than 10 days of school are 36% more likely to drop out. We estimate that an additional 2 to 9% of high school students could drop out as a result of the coronavirus and associated school closures. This affects learning less and higher dropout rates are not likely to be temporary. Shocks easily erased in the next academic year. On the contrary, we believe that they may translate into long-term harm for individuals and society. I know this is not a temporary. This will impact the kids for the rest of their life. And I think we need to do everything we possibly can for them to try to get more face-to-face instruction. That was even echoed by Chris Friedel in his letter in the opening plan that was sent out to all districts. That's why I believe that this survey needs to go out. Depending what the results are, then the board needs to set a direction. The first thing we need to do is get everybody involved. We need to get the teachers. We need to get the paraprofessionals, the PSE. We need to get the Department of Health. We need to get the administrators and the board, and we all need to work together to do what's best for our kids and try to get them more face time with their teachers in school. And I think the first step to do that is this survey, to get that out to them. Because if they tell us, well, we already know, most of them say they do want their kids back in class. But how safe will they feel? When do they think that it is safe that they could bring their kids in? There's a lot of questions there that we can ask them besides, do you want your kids back into school or not? We know they all want their kids back in school. So this is the data the board needs to help make that communication and represent our citizens like we were elected to, like Lindsay said. That's all I got to say.
I just want to.
Sharon, we can't hear you.
Sharon, you're frozen and we can't hear you. If you can hear us at all, you're frozen.
We don't have to go into something right away. 30 days from now could be completely different. Safety is certainly at the top of my list. I mean, are we making sure that we have this in our plan, that if we go back, do we have the plastic shields around the desks, around the teachers, for the students? I know that they are having that in the SPED, but we should have this with our CARES Act money. We should be having all of this pre-bought and ready to go for when we do go back.
I think I missed the first part of your conversation, your response, Sharon. Can you say the first part?
Sharon, can you repeat the first part of your response? We weren't able to hear it.
Okay. Mine didn't say I didn't have internet. See, it happens every day to everybody. I just said that I think that I certainly would like to have the staff fill out some type.
Sharon, we can't hear you.
I think we should see what they feel, and those that are parents should fill out a separate form. Is that where I left off?
So if I heard you, Sharon, you're thinking staff should fill a survey and parents fill a different one out? Is that?
I'd like to see what the staff feels. We're getting split of everything. We don't know. We've only sort of heard that 2 schools did a little light.
Unfortunately, this is one of the struggles I heard last week that some of the teachers were having too, is internet's going in and out with this same thing. And it was a struggle.
I mean, I feel like what's more powerful than what anyone has to say is our shared experience just in tonight. Ken, a fourth of your talking was out and we couldn't hear you. Sharon, 3/4 of you talking is out and we can't hear you, but we're expecting kindergartners to educate in this way. Like this is my point. We're trying, but it's even difficult for grown adults to have a conversation and keep a cohesive thought. And we're not trying to learn our ABCs. This is just a case in point for me.
I'll echo that.
So I took an opportunity to go and visit every single campus today. And I asked to see online learning and to talk to anybody and everybody that would talk to me. I spoke with janitors, lunch ladies, maintenance, was in on it for part of it. Lots of teachers. I talked to paras, administrators. I tried to hit a little bit of everything. And I just made it evident that I was willing to talk to and hear from anyone. It was pretty apparent that some campuses feel like they don't have support. Many campuses said it was obvious that they were feeling fully supported from each other, from their administration, from a variety of things. Every single person said, yeah, I want to be in person. But then many of them said, not yet. This is not the time to go back. Some of them said, nope, this isn't working at all, period. I need them back in my classroom. I just can't do it this way. And I always knew that this was a complex problem, that there were so many different factors in it, but it just became so much more apparent by getting to every campus that this is even more complex than I had originally thought. I don't know. I know that even discussion of having a survey has divided the board, has divided our staff, has divided our community. I'm not actually in favor of it. I don't think that going back now is a reasonable solution for a multitude of reasons. Do I think that eventually we're going to be back? Yes, I do. Do I think that this is the best thing for everyone? No. I think that teachers are doing the best that they can. Some are overwhelmed. Everyone is challenged. But even if we did a survey now and we're not able to go back for another 6 months or even 2 months, I don't know if it would really change anything. To go back at these high numbers is, I see so many issues besides a safety issue, a union grievance issue. It could bankrupt the district. Liability issues, insurance issues. How are we going to put them in the classroom? How are we going to accommodate those that refuse to go back and possibly pull their kids? Or are we going to have multiple options of how to go back and force teachers to teach multiple options or rearrange all the classrooms? The logistics of that right now, I think, are unreasonable, and I'm not in favor of even doing a survey right now.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure. Yes.
Jen, I totally respect where you're coming from. I guess my confusion is, if you're against a survey, why did you go to the schools to find out what people thought? Like, if you don't care and the numbers are what they are and you don't want to move forward with a survey, why ask the question in the first place?
The comment that you made that I don't care, I completely disagree with that. And I understand that might be your perspective, or maybe a miswording.
Totally miswording. I don't mean that you don't care. I know you care.
I understand.
Deeply.
Right. I just wanted to say that part. I felt like maybe because of personal experiences that my family is dealing with, I felt like maybe I am have already pre-made my decision. I needed to get out there and talk to more people and find out, see in the trenches and see if I needed to have a paradigm shift. If what had been said, or if we're listening to a loud minority, if we're listening, if there's a silent majority out there, if I'm using my biases too much. I mean, there were a lot of tears on a bunch of different campuses, both by me and by others. One person, when I said, how is online learning goes, it said, this sucks rocks. And it expressed how and why and the frustrations. And then I said, so do you feel like it's time to go back in person now? No, not with these numbers. There were people that changed their mind from when they passed the MOU. And they said, now I would change my mind for the MOU. Others said, nope, I am exactly where I need to be. I think from the staff side, if they want to be back, then they need to go through their union to make those changes or to express to their union that there's a frustration. Both OEA and PSE, if they want to be back, they need to go through that way. I feel like we have already voted, like what some of Ken had said. I could use for my, some of those policies I could use from my standpoint as well. We have already voted to approve those MOUs that were very clearly cut as to when they could go back. It sounds like both unions approved the MOUs as well that were also very clearly cut with the 75 per 100,000. If they change their mind, then they can come to the district and make those changes. Many of them said, yeah, this is hard, but I don't feel like it's time to go back yet. I didn't necessarily have a paradigm shift. And I felt like I was trying to listen with my heart. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, we all want to be on campus, all of us, from so many different angles.
Yeah, I totally respect what you're saying. I just, I guess that's the reason why I think a survey would be important. I mean, we need 2/3 of the vote from the teachers anyway, before we can even reopen the MOUs. And so that's exactly what a survey gets us, is a temperature check on where our teachers stand, where the staff stands, because the people I've been talking to and the surveys that I've been reading are different than than what people have said to you. And so I just feel like that a survey can maybe clear that up as to what people are saying. Maybe they say an offhanded comment to me that they don't really mean, but when they get to a survey, they would really put pen to paper and say, you know what, actually, I'm not really safe, or actually, I do want to go back, whatever it is. That's why a survey doesn't say October 1st, we're starting school. The survey says, guys, is there 2/3 that want to reopen the MOUs, and let's go back to the table and see if we can get our kids in person. So
is that the board's is that the board's responsibility to do that survey, or is it the union's responsibility to do that survey then?
I guess at this point, I don't really know. And so I'm confident or I'm comfortable going forward with our own survey. But the union, I think, in my opinion, the union should absolutely be having this conversation. This should not just be a school board discussion. The union, people should be contacting their union reps, to your point. Absolutely. They should be trying to go to bat with their union and say, we want something different, 100%. I guess I just don't understand the harm in us finding out where our constituents stand.
I think if I could just share as well, since you're talking about the survey, I think I need clarity as well, because I think I heard you say, Lindsay, that you certainly had some ideas on the survey. So I think I need clarity on whether this is a district survey or if it's a board survey or whose survey, because if it's a district survey, then the district actually devises the questions and just shares that out to everyone. If it's a board survey, as we have in the past, at board retreats, the board will decide what the questions are going to be, and then you ask the district to send that out. So I think I need clarity on that. If I could also, Mike, because I'm not sure if you're getting ready to take a vote, there's a couple of things that was just shared that I just wanted to just comment on. It sounds like from just listening to a few of the board members that there is, I guess, this agreement that they want to see a survey go out. So the survey goes out. It is what it is. Everybody wants to come back. I just need to share with the board that there are significant obstacles that we have not talked about that needs to be discussed before we go any further. If the survey kind of yields what it does. And I think some of those conversations need to be had in an executive session. There's certainly information that I've not shared with the board that certainly is executive session material that you just need to be aware of. So I wanted to make that point. I think also there was a comment made about a poverty rate, EL kids having a higher struggle. I know there's no ill intent by those kind of comments, but I just ask that we just be very cautious of those kind of comments because, as I've shared before, that's an assumption. And I know people will say that about kids who are poverty kids or kids who are EL students or even SPED students, but we just have to be very cautious and careful on assigning or ascribing whether they are struggling or not. And I think that the last thing I wanted to share also, or two other things, there was a comment made about students learning in person and that's better for them. I will say there is no evidence that we have right now that our students are not learning at high levels. There's just not a lot of evidence. So I just ask that we be very cautious about saying that our kids need to be in person. I think our kids do need to be in person, but ascribing that they're not learning right now in an online environment, we just have to be very careful about. I think the last comment that was made is around connectivity. I think what I shared with the board is that the issue that happened today would have happened in any situation that we would have been in. It was not, no one is at fault except for our internet service providers. So, which goes to my point as well, as far as the timing is just too early. What I have shared with the board is the problems that have been happening around connectivity or Zoom or whatever, those issues have been resolved and are being resolved. So I just think that we just need to be very careful when we're sharing those types of things, because I just don't want the public to think that it's out of order, the whole online environment. I think everything is going very well, especially since this is really new, and problems are being resolved as well. And there's just not enough data to support that our kids are not learning. So I just wanted to share that. This is a very complex issue. Whenever we get the survey results back, Mike, if that's the direction of the board, there are some issues that need to be discussed in closed session.
Ken, is there anything else you want to add? I see you're unmuted there.
Yes, I was just going to mention, I believe that this survey is for data and information for the board to help the board make its decision and moving forward, representing our citizens. So I believe it should be, well, like I already said, it should be from the board, and I think the board should also write this possibly. And we should be the ones to receive this data back. Like I said, after we get the data, it may tell us we shouldn't be going nowhere. And you know what? Right at this moment, I would have to agree with that. I know the numbers are up there very, very high. But also getting this how it's questioned, we could get a feeling from our citizens on when they feel they would send their kids to school, when it would be more comfortable, knowing the current situation that we're in. It would also give us a direction to work with the teachers. It would give us a start with the discussion with the teachers after we receive this data. True, they're the ones that are going to have the first ones that we're going to have their buy-in in order to move forward. That's about all I got to say. You know, if any of the board members have questions, I think, Mike, that they should forward them to you that they would like to see on this, and maybe put together a short 5 questions or something like that. You know, nothing big, nothing, just very simple. And to meet, and so it's equitable for all of our citizens in this county.
Go ahead, Jen.
So I have I just want to make sure I fully understand. It sounds like all along you've been talking about, excuse me, a survey for the community. But I was taking all of your references for a survey for the community. Are you?
Also the teachers.
Also the staff?
Also the staff. They're the first ones that are going, after we receive the results back, they're going to be the first ones that we have to have on board with this in order to move this forward. So we need to know if they're not willing to move forward, then there's no sense to discuss it any further.
So are you saying go forward with the staff survey only first before we go to the community? Or do both at the same time?
I think both at the same time. I have no problem with both at the same time.
Lindsay, could you, okay, Lindsay, could you I was going to say, could you elaborate your choice if you're in favor of both? How about you, Sharon? Okay.
I want to see the staff have a survey separate from the citizens, because some of those staff members.
We lost you, Sharon.
Anyone,
Sharon?
either direction. We just want to know what people feel.
Okay, all I heard, Sharon, or all we heard was that you would rather that the staff have a different survey than the community. So if I can ask again, do you want both of those, all stakeholders basically, to have the survey at this time? Or are you saying that the staff gets theirs and then we follow up with one for the community, or do you want both of them at the same time?
I don't mind that they both go out at the same time, but I would like to have the staff have a separate one as a staff member. And then if you are a parent, also you may have some people that are parents and staff have different feelings for each side. So if we can make it so that the staff, I think we need to know how the schools are feeling. We don't know how all of them are feeling. Even having those meetings, we do not know how each of them feels.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate everybody's input tonight. Chris, I appreciate the data. I appreciate your perspective, which I'm sure is representative of the executive team, admin team. I'm sure you guys have had long, hard conversations on the subject. Jen, when you said that this was a complex scenario, I've got it written down like 17 times as far as complexity. I just now want to take a little bit of time and talk to every stakeholder. I want to begin by recognizing our district staff, recognizing all our teachers, parapros, every single employee that the Othello School District has. Thank you. Thank you for your amazing work. Thank you for your out-of-the-box efforts. Thank you for going above and beyond on many occasions during these trying times. Um, to me, it's taken a little bit of a different. I have had a paradigm shift to a certain extent about COVID, and I've expressed this before because it's hit close to home. Am I ready to say that I'm on board with making a decision today? No, I'm not. But I think we've been very careful to say that going forward with a survey is not an indication of us wanting to on October 1st, October 15th, December 1st. There is no date per se that would come out of a survey. I think we can agree, Chris, and I'll be real careful because you told us, you mentioned, I don't think any of us is trying to imply directly that there aren't kids that are doing outstanding. But I can speak as one person. The feedback I have gotten from parents, unfortunately, isn't the best. The demographic of our district, unfortunately, in this case, allows for non-supervised students at school, like Ken witnessed Thursday and Friday. The complexity of this is enormous. And although I don't think that a survey is an end all to fix the solution, to make a decision even, I don't think we'll have the results or the answers that we all want. Because like Jen said, and I am trying to be as respectful of everybody's opinion, because that's the world we live in. This is a democracy, and we all have a say. I'm of the opinion, but I think there's a consensus, and unless someone thinks we need a vote, that there's at least 3 board members who are of the opinion that the survey goes out both to the community and staff members. I wanted to see a staff member only, an OEA, PSC, OOA, our directors union, every employee at OSD have a survey first. To the community that's listening, that does not mean that we disregard your point of view, that we don't listen to your points of view. But at the end of the day, we need buy-in from the folks that would be on the front lines executing a going back in some way, shape, or form model. If that's not there, Ken, you said a while ago, it's a moot point. Again, Chris, I feel that this will be a survey will go out based on 3 board members choosing that tonight. I will ask the board members to forward your questions in the format, however you have them. I will try to do my best to wordsmith them to where I think your intent is. I will get those back to you. Chris, we definitely need to set up an executive session at the next meeting on Monday to discuss the issues that you brought up that will help us moving forward, forge a decision regardless of well, not regardless, but based on the answers that we get. I just want to be real careful tonight to everyone listening. All 5 of us board members, every administrator, every director, every teacher, parapro, janitor, food service gals and guys, bus drivers, secretaries, everybody involved at OSD wants what's best for our kids. And in an ideal situation, if our numbers were even remotely close, I think the conversation would probably have a different connotation to it. But at this point in time, our numbers are just what they are. I can't see us trying to move forward here in the near future. That's not to say that we don't want kids back. The complexity of this scenario is just too vast for us to, in, I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes or however long we've been here, try to determine these things. Jen, you went into this trying to change your opinion. And I can sense that you're genuine in your response to where you were wanting to see if maybe your point of view and the biases that you have based on your personal situations is what was motivating perhaps you're not wanting this survey and things of that nature. And you spoke to a lot of people today, it sounds. all realms. You spoke the folks feeding our kids, those teaching them, those that are in charge of evaluating our educators. So I think you got an array of opinions back. And if that didn't change your mind, I think that says something. Lindsay, I'm on board that majority rules. Yes, they do. So we do. I feel it's important that we do get feedback. But when this is so complex, when we're dealing with so many issues, I mean, you hit on the liability, Jen. Those ramifications are immense. Chris, you talked to Clear Risk. I'm sure they've got a litany. They got a list of things that we got to look out for. Unfortunately, we're like a salmon swimming upstream because the numbers just don't help us. Unless our numbers are lower, I don't see us getting buy-in from the health authorities or from the state or anything like that. I feel we as a community are doing our best. We are masking up. We are social distancing whenever possible. There's a shield up here at my place of employment. I should buy stock in some hand sanitizer company because my hands are, we're doing what we can, and it's just not happening at the pace that we want it to. So community of Othello, we need to continue doing what we can to try to stop these numbers. Chris, you mentioned the 20 new cases today. It's not the kind of news we need to hear. None of us want that. At the same time, I hear these folks that their loved ones are at stake, and we have to listen to that. We can't be deaf to those requests of watch what we're doing, be careful, be elaborate, consider everything. And that's what we're trying to do. So Chris, the board is going to get those questions to me. I think we have decided it is a board survey. We will draft the questions and ask you to send that out. I just can't say it enough. I am so proud of this district. To the administrators who are listening, we've had some very in-depth conversations. Those will continue. To those that will take the survey, be honest, be truthful. We need to hear the truth. A lot of times people say that they're forced to answer a certain way, or that if I put my true feelings out there, I'll be looked at differently. I don't want to be dramatic, but this could be a life or death situation for some folks. So we need to make a decision based on true answers. I've said this before and I'll say it now. I think online learning is a new leg of the Othello School District for I don't know how long, maybe forever, because there's certainly going to be some folks that are not going to be safe until our numbers are closer to zero. I mean, I'm not even going to say 75 or whatever. And that doesn't mean that they're wrong in their way of thinking. We have to respect those things. So community of Othello, thank you once again. Just know that every decision that we make as a board or as a district, the well-being of the child is at the forefront of that. We as a district, we are very much focused on growth. And there's numerous studies that indicate that online isn't the optimal learning model. That's not saying that it's not working for some. That's not at all. But if we're going to use statistics, I think they don't favor that. But that we got superstars. We got some kids that are going to shine no matter what model we throw at them. We got some parents that are making sure they're the ones going above and beyond, making sure when connectivity issues are the problem, that they try to resolve them. I apologize, guys, for getting long-winded and talking so much. But again, I just want to make sure that everybody who's listening tonight know that we're cognizant of our issues, know that we want our kids back to in-person learning as quick as we can, but we got to do it in a safe way. We have to do it in a way that accommodates both opinions, both sides of the aisle, for lack of a better word, both points of view. It is extremely important that we get our kids back, because I don't know if they'll be able to make up the lost time. I hope we come up with innovative ways of doubling our efforts to try to make some of that up. I don't know. It's going to take the awesome people that we have here to come up with creative ways to help us accomplish these things. But Chris, I think summing it up tonight, the board will get questions back to me, and as soon as I can, I'll forward those to you once we come to a consensus or agreement on the questions and how we pose them and what our intent is behind those. I will make sure that they are translated into Spanish. I don't know if the district has someone who can do Mixteco or not. I'm not sure if those folks, I want to make sure that they're represented as well. Again, I want to thank everyone. And Chris, I know you're unmuted. I'm sure you've got some asks of us, but the directive is that it will be a board survey. It will go out to both community and staff members. I heard 3 folks mention that. I heard a couple of us that at this time, we try to get our numbers lower than we can. But again, we are a majority ruled board. Having said that, Chris, any questions for us?
I was just going to ask if the board could provide maybe you with some clarity around timeline for the survey, when you want it to go out, when you want it to come back as well. And then I'll touch bases with my staff to see if there's any other questions. And if there are other questions, then I can get with you probably in the morning, Mike.
I would ask the board if they feel getting these questions to me so where I can present them to Chris by the next board meeting. Is that giving us enough time?
I think that's plenty. As you know, where our numbers are right now, trying to get in a big rush ain't going to get those numbers down. So this is going to be a lengthy process anyway. And that's why my interest is getting forward. And Mike, very well put. I appreciate everything you said. Very well put. Thank you.
All right. So to the board, if you could forward me your questions, the format, how would you like these? I know we're trying to be as simplistic as possible. I would appreciate those to me as quick as you can. And Chris, as far as a timeline, I think we can use the next board meeting. You'll have the survey before then, also with an expected time of duration for this survey, and then the calculation of the results once the survey is done. Once again, public who is listening tonight, thank you very much. We appreciate you being interested enough to listen to us have our conversation. I will end tonight by saying, Othello, we are a resilient community. We all want what's best for our kids. And I have no doubt in my mind that we will collectively come together as a community, as a district, and do what's best for our kids. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate your input. Having said that, our business is done here tonight, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.